When you consider classic spirits that have endured through the ages, whiskey and brandy frequently spring to mind. They've been served in prestigious establishments, lifted during momentous celebrations, and savored peacefully beside the hearth. Both possess extensive traditions, profound cultural significance, and devoted admirers. However, while they may appear comparable in a tumbler, these two beverages are fundamentally distinct regarding their production methods, flavor characteristics, and the experiences they provide. So, in today's exploration, we're going to examine what distinguishes whiskey from brandy. Stay with us, because by the conclusion, you'll not only grasp their distinctive qualities, but also identify which one might align with your taste preferences best. Right here on Stories Behind Everything. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Whiskey is a distilled alcoholic beverage produced from grains. Based on its production location, those grains might consist of barley, corn, rye, or wheat. Following distillation, whiskey undergoes aging in wooden casks, frequently oak, which imparts that rich amber hue and characteristic smoky, woody taste profile. Brandy, conversely, is a spirit distilled from fermented fruit, predominantly grapes. Actually, the term brandy derives from the Dutch word brandewijn, meaning burned wine. This makes perfect sense because brandy is fundamentally distilled wine. Similar to whiskey, it matures in barrels, which likewise influences its taste and appearance. However, the fruit-based foundation distinguishes it immediately. So in the most basic explanation, whiskey originates with grains, while brandy originates with fruit. That singular distinction alone directs them toward vastly different trajectories. The chronicles of whiskey and brandy are as substantial as the beverages themselves. Whiskey is thought to have emerged in Ireland and Scotland during the late medieval period, though distillation methods can be traced considerably further back to early civilizations. Religious orders contributed significantly to perfecting whiskey manufacturing, and throughout the centuries, whiskey expanded globally, developing into various styles like Scotch, Irish whiskey, bourbon, and rye. Brandy, in the meantime, traces back to Europe during the 1400s and 1500s when distillers started experimenting with concentrating wine. Dutch merchants were among the earliest to distill wine for simpler transportation, and ultimately, people discovered the distilled result was enjoyable on its own merits. France elevated brandy to new heights with Cognac and Armagnac, two of the most renowned and esteemed brandy-producing territories globally. So whiskey emerged from the heritage of grains and beer-style fermentation, while brandy developed from viticulture. Two distinctly different origins, both resulting in worldwide traditions of expertise. Now, let's examine more precisely what comprises these spirits. For whiskey, the grain variety is significant. Bourbon, for instance, requires at least 51% corn content. Rye whiskey, predictably, depends substantially on rye. Scotch whiskey typically begins with malted barley. Each grain contributes a somewhat different characteristic. Corn provides sweetness. Rye introduces spiciness. Barley delivers a malty depth. With brandy, grapes dominate. The grape varieties utilized depend on the territory. Cognac, for instance, depends on particular varieties like Ugni Blanc, which possess high acidity and low sugar content, rendering them ideal for distillation. Beyond grapes, certain brandies are produced from apples, pears, cherries, or alternative fruits. These are frequently termed fruit brandies or eau de vie. So whereas whiskey is characterized by the grain composition, brandy is characterized by the fruit. That essential difference influences everything that comes after. Both whiskey and brandy undergo distillation, but the methodologies emphasize their distinct origins. Whiskey is generally distilled in either pot stills or column stills, based on the variety. Scotch frequently employs pot stills, which generate a fuller, more intricate spirit. American whiskeys like bourbon frequently utilize column stills, which can yield a smoother, purer spirit. After distillation, whiskey typically emerges from the still at a comparatively elevated alcohol concentration, but maintains substantial grain character. Brandy distillation frequently seeks to retain the subtle fruit essences. Pot stills are prevalent in territories like Cognac and Armagnac, which permits distillers to preserve more of those fruity and floral characteristics. Because the objective differs, emphasizing fruit rather than grain, the distillation methodology is frequently more delicate, and the resulting spirit can be somewhat more sophisticated directly from the still. Here's another aspect where whiskey and brandy share certain similarities, but also differ. Whiskey nearly always necessitates aging in oak casks. Bourbon, for example, must mature in new charred oak barrels, which explains why it acquires those profound vanilla, caramel, and smoky characteristics. Scotch can employ barrels that previously contained sherry or wine, generating layers of taste complexity. The maturation process is absolutely essential for whiskey. It converts the raw spirit into something refined and intricate. Brandy also matures in barrels, but the methodology varies considerably. Some brandies, particularly Cognac, spend years in French oak casks, developing notes of dried fruit, nuts, and spices. Others might mature for briefer durations or even bottled unaged, especially regarding fruit brandies like apple or pear. The barrel contributes richness, but the fruity essence frequently remains more prominent compared to whiskey's substantial oak influence. Whiskey and brandy possess distinctly different characters. Whiskey is assertive and multifaceted, presenting notes of caramel, vanilla, oak, spice, or smoke based on the variety. Bourbon is more sweet, rye is more peppery, and Scotch spans from floral to peaty. Brandy trends more sophisticated and fruit-centered, frequently showcasing dried fruits, apricot or floral characteristics. Cognac is polished and aromatic, while Armagnac feels more rustic. Their consumption traditions mirror this distinction. Whiskey is adaptable, enjoyed neat, on ice, or incorporated in classics like the old-fashioned or Manhattan. Brandy, in contrast, is typically savored neat in a snifter following meals, though it also excels in cocktails like the sidecar. Ultimately, whiskey's assertive versatility and brandy's sophisticated elegance both transform them into more than just spirits. They're cultural experiences in a glass. So, which one is superior, whiskey or brandy? The reality is, it depends on your preferences. Whiskey provides assertive, multifaceted flavors and adaptability. Whether you appreciate it neat, on ice, or in a traditional cocktail, brandy trends refined and smooth, frequently emphasizing rich fruit characteristics and maintaining an atmosphere of sophistication, particularly when sipped gradually following a meal. Rather than one being better, each presents a distinct experience. Whiskey feels vigorous and daring, while brandy feels elegant and enduring. Both possess centuries of heritage, artisanship, and cultural distinction behind them. At the conclusion of the day, they're not merely spirits. They're narratives in a glass awaiting discovery by anyone inquisitive enough to investigate them. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you proper recognition for your contribution. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other content. Thank you for joining us on this exploration through stories behind everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories discovered through the smallest details.